Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakal Kadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who have taught me this truth. And shout out to Yakim that's out there in the four quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. As you know, Esau was fucking with the last feed, but this is a look at the Kilauea volcano, which is where I was the last time. So we're going to look a little bit at the Kilauea volcano, which has been going on for quite some time. Earthquakes in diverse places, you could say.
Activity and lava output from Fissure 8 remains low. This morning's overflight crew saw a weak to moderately active bubbling lava lake within the Fissure 8 cone, a weak gas plume, and a completely crusted lava channel. Later in the morning, ground crews found the upper channel largely devoid of lava, confirming that the channel is empty to at least the vicinity of Kapaho crater, where a short section of spiny active lava in a channel was present. There were small active oozouts near the coast on the Kapaho Bay and Anhalanui lobes, but the lace plume was greatly diminished. Active lava is close to the Pahoiki boat ramp but has not advanced significantly toward it. The significance of this change is not yet clear, and hazardous conditions remain in the area. HVO field crews and the UAS team will monitor activity throughout the day and overnight. It is common for eruptions to wax and wane or pause completely. A return to high levels of lava discharge or new outbreaks in the area of active fissures could occur at any time.
So that's the latest from Kilauea volcano, which is still quite active. So, well, we got that going on. Speaking of alternative media, here's Bashar al-Assad's wife talking about the demonization of Syria and what's really going on, why the mainstream will not cover these stories.
About the humanitarian situation in Syria, but in truth, the severity of the situation is beyond comprehension. The displacement, the poverty, the sickness, the suffering is possibly unprecedented. Ironically, Western media organizations have chosen to solely focus on the plight of refugees and those caught up in rebel-held areas, whereas in fact the vast majority of people displaced are living across the rest of the country. And these people, as much as anybody else, matter. Why was the fate of the children in Zara not given the same media coverage as the tragedies of Aylan and Omran? The Western media decided to focus on these tragedies because it suited their media agenda. It's actually the West that is dividing our children in this conflict according to the political beliefs of their parents. Aylan was a Syrian child. irrespective of what his parents believed, as was Umran and the other innocent children in the Zara village massacre. These are all children. They are all innocent children. And they are all a loss to Syria. Irrespective of which.
And you know that Esau doesn't give a shit about how many families they've destroyed and all that. They only control a narrative that they want to blame Bashar al-Assad, but that was Bashar al-Assad's wife. Well, as that's going on, of course, we know that the White Helmets, who is their group to blame Bashar al-Assad, this is the real truth here.
على ذبح الطفل عبد الله عيسى في حلب. الجريمة جرت قرب مقر لمنظمة الخوذ البيضاء وتحت أنظار عناصرها الذين لم يحركوا ساكنا لمنعها. تقرير.
So hopefully you can read this.
عامان على جريمة ذبح الطفل عبد الله عيسى من قبل حركة نور الدين الزنكي في حي المشهد في حلب، على بعد أمتار من مقر من يدعون العمل الإنساني الخوذ البيضاء، وتحت أعين الإنسانية والمنقذين. لم تمنعهم شعاراتهم من منع الجريمة التي ارتكبت أمام أعينهم بسكين حركة نور الدين الزنكي.
يومتها أنا كان نهار الصبح دون ما نجيب خبز من عند هذوليك مسلحين، فاتجهت اتجاه عكسي باتجاه إشارات المشهد. وقت رجعت فاجأت إنه في بركة دم وريحة يعني مثل شيء مثل جثة يعني كان الحرارة مثل هلا هيك. فقال لي واحد قال لي إنه صار إنه ذبحوا طفل، وفرجاني على جهازه اللي هو طلع هلا مع المسلحين شلون عم بيقول لهم إنه هو عطشان مع بيسقوا مي، وصاروا نوع من الاستهزاء، يعني يقولوا إنه هدول رجالك يا بشار، ويعملوا له هيك على خده يعني إنه استهزاء، نوع من الاستهزاء، واثنين هن ملتحين في الصورة.
لعل أشرطة الفيديو التي نشرت في ذلك الوقت عن مشاركة عناصر الخوذ البيضاء حركة نور الدين الزنكي في معركة الكليات العسكرية والراموسة تثبت تورط عناصر المنظمة في عمليات عسكرية حتى مع جماعات إرهابية.
كانت هي مدرسة والفقر بالشدي عليه حلول نشوية وجنبها في مدرسة الأطفال، بعدين دخلوا مسلحين عليها، بعدها حولوها لدفاع مدني. هذول الأخوة بيض وبابيض وبيروحوا بطرق طريقية. بعدين دخل الجيش العربي السوري طهر المنطقة كلها ورجعت سووا رمضوها ورجعت مدرسة.
So, you know, pretty much the real heroes, of course, has been Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian Arab Army, but of course they're going to tell you that the heroes are the White Helmets when in fact they're the terrorist groups themselves. And here's more about what's going on in Syria, because I know that there's been a media blockout on that, as Assad is winning the war.
The Syrian Arab Army, SAA, and its allied local militias have kicked off an advance on ISIS positions in the eastern part of al-Suwaida province. It's interesting to note that some former units of the Free Syrian Army, FSA, which is reconciled with Damascus, are participating in the advance. The SAA artillery and the Syrian Air Force carried out about 50 strikes on ISIS targets in the areas of Al-Waya, Ad al-Karar, Masrouya al-Khatib, Snaim al-Khirs, and east of Dabanfe, Rabat al-Hizm, and Tel Razin. The Syrian media says that ISIS suffered heavy casualties in these strikes, but no photos or videos to confirm these claims have been released. The goal of the ongoing operation is to get rid of ISIS cells hiding in the desert. In July, these cells carried out a series of sensitive attacks in government-controlled areas, thus triggering the decision to deal with them as soon as possible. In early August, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, formerly Jabhat al-Nusra, the Syrian branch of al-Qaeda, and Jabhat al-Wataniya lil-Tahrir, an alliance of militant groups created with Turkish assistance, started a wide-scale effort to crack down on supporters of reconciliation with the Damascus government in the province of Idlib. According to local sources, militant groups have already arrested at least 60 civilians and local figures who support a deal with Damascus to put an end to hostilities. These developments are an obvious attempt by militant groups to undermine a possible peace process in the Idlib de-escalation zone. According to some sources, Turkey, which is one of the guarantor states of the de-escalation zone's deal reached in Astana, has, behind the scenes, been encouraging militants in their effort. Recently, the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, declared that they had established full control of the Syrian-Iraqi border on the eastern bank of the Euphrates, defeating ISIS terrorists there. However, the SDF security situation is still ongoing in the area because a notable amount of ISIS cells are still in operation there.
And this is the stuff that they will not tell you on the so-called mainstream, but pretty much, Assad is retaking control of the country. And why is Syria been a target? Well, quite simply put, this is the Valley of Yehoshaphat, Valley of Yahweh's judgment. So while they're doing that, it's really to go after Iran, pretty much. They want a war with Iran, so why not by taking out, their proxies, their alliances, pretty much the terrorists, still funded by the United States, in the guise of fighting ISIS, the Syrian Democratic Forces, are really just kind of helping ISIS, but by pretending to fight them, And here's more about how Iran is fighting against Donald Trump.
Iran's central bank has eased foreign exchange rules. The plan is to halt the fall of rial that has lost half its value since April due to fears about the US sanctions. A new package unveiled by the governor of the Central Bank of Iran, Abdel Nasser Hemmati, comprises mechanisms to control the US dollar rates through a recently launched secondary currency market. Also, the CBI will no longer be involved in determining the dollar exchange rates. Instead, the exchange rate would be pegged to the actual trading figures as obtained from transactions between suppliers and buyers in the secondary foreign currency market. Experts, however, say the new measure is a short-term remedy and more needs to be done.
The government and its economic team opened the economy to prevent further foreign exchange fluctuations and chaos in the markets. They prefer to focus their efforts mostly on fighting the new US sanctions and international trade restrictions. This might look like a passive policy, but it will still help ease tensions in the forex market.
This is not a new policy. The government introduced the same set of rules earlier this year to stabilize the secondary forex market. The idea is to make peace with market players. In other words, the government couldn't convince foreign exchange holders or exporters to inject their money back into the market at fixed prices.
The plunge in the currency and soaring inflation sparked random protests against profiteering and corruption in recent days in a number of cities. In response, the government replaced the central bank chief and the judiciary arrested over 30 people, including a former forex deputy of central bank, foreign exchange dealers, and hoarders.
In addition to the US sanctions, I blame the trade guilds for the sorry state of affairs in the economy. They purchased basic goods and others like cars at lower prices and hoarded them to sell at higher prices. They should also be arrested and charged.
For now, though, a state body led by President Hassan Rouhani and including the heads of the judiciary and parliament has lifted a ban on the sale of foreign currency at floating rates, allowing exchange bureaus to sell at unofficial market rates. Because of the new measures, the rial has gained slightly on the unofficial market. The new central bank chief says this, plus the government's plan to open the economy, reflects the nation's self-confidence in the face of the new US sanctions. Amanodin, Press TV, Tehran.
So either way, they're fighting back. And of course, what's happening? Well, pretty much Trump is running his mouth again against, pretty much the beast, his allies. So let's take a look at this. This is a Dabu 7 video, and then we'll end it there.
It looks like the new sanctions against Iran are now being rolled out in full effect, and it looks like the Trump administration is giving a warning shot across the bow to any allies, especially in the European Union, stating that it's going to not be tolerated in terms of anyone violating doing business with them after these sanctions have been put in place. They say that the Trump administration intends to fully enforce the sanctions reimposed against Iran, and those who fail to wind down activities with Iran risk severe consequences. This is what he is saying to all the allies out there in the European Union, to any ally. Now what they've done is they've gone around and they've tried to get as many countries on board with this idea as they could. There's one big holdout, so to speak, and that is China, that is hampering what they're trying to do here in terms of Iran. Now, they've been able, because of the U.S.'s dominant role in the world's financial system, they've been able to pressure countries and companies into compliance in dealing with this. And of course, this is all hand in hand with what Netanyahu and Israel once done in their ideology, and we can see clearly this is where Trump is aligned with this whole thing. And of course, China is on the other side, backing Iran, and then you have the whole Russia thing in the mix as well. But in terms of these sanctions, they've been put into motion. We'll see how they respond from here, and we'll see how Trump deals with any other countries that try to keep on doing business with Iran and that don't adhere to his warnings in terms of this. We'll see what he does to them, if he puts any sanctions on them, or what happens in an instance like that. But they're ramping stuff up on Iran, if you haven't noticed. There's also chaos in the streets. If you look at the timing here, all of a sudden out of nowhere, here within the past few months, chaos starts kicking up in the streets of Iran. Where have we seen this before? About Libya, Egypt, other places that have turned to chaos only to benefit those who come swooping in to grab the power. But I will update if we see him lock horns with any other country or anyone else that doesn't want to comply with these rules, so to speak, against Iran. I'll leave a link below. I'll continue to update with more. Stay tuned for live shows on both channels. It's been W7.
And you know that pretty much, well, as it says here, and I know you can't read it all, but it says World War III kicks off in Syria, which is the Valley of Yehoshaphat, you know, and we know that the places where all the armies will be gathered is Saudi Arabia, and we see more and more, you know, the Israeli state, Amalek, getting involved on their war against Iran, or against Yemen, which are the proxies of Iran, pretty much. They want a war with Iran, as Chris Green has always said for years. So anyhow, yeah, this is an attack on alternative media, you know, because, you know, we've been questioning the narrative for some time. You know, you learn to question everything, you know, not believe as you're told. And you got to do that in everything, because if I didn't question everything, I never would have figured out that I was one of the elect. I was a one-third, the elect of Israel, blacks, Latinos, Native Americans that make up the nation of Israel. Me being a confusion of face, I never would have figured that out had I not questioned everything. And for that, I have been blessed. So that's about it there. We know that this war will kick off very shortly here, and make no mistake about it, the mark of the beast is coming, as you see that biometric system already in place in Seattle. Those are all testing grounds. Until then, Rakata and Shalom to the hopeful elect.